What's up, guys? Tim Halsell with DragBoss Garage and Darin Morgan Induction. Welcome to the live chat tonight. I appreciate everybody being here. It's going to be a great live chat. You know, Darin is on board too, so I think you guys are going to learn a ton, and we're going to get a lot of history from Aaron. But I want to thank you guys for being here. I want to thank my kids for allowing me to be here, and my daughter's new boyfriend, Giggles. I had to say that for him. And Perkins Track and Field. My daughter's in track, and she had her first meet today. So thank you guys for the help and support. And I also want to let you guys know on April 4th, we have an open live chat with Darin and I. And I'll put up that post probably tomorrow or Monday. And then on the 18th, we have another live chat, but that's for members only for Knowledge is Power. And I'll put that post up also. So this is a special guest, Aaron Tremayne. Now, I don't know how it all happened. Darin had said to me weeks ago, oh, we got to get the Tremayne brothers on or talk with them. They're big pro stock guys. And I said, okay. I go, I don't really know them, but I'll find out what I can. And then in our group that we have on Tuesdays, I saw your name. Pete Murray said, oh, here's a member we want to bring in. I'm like, Aaron Tremayne, it's got to be the same guy. So I did a message to Pete, and Pete says, yeah, that's him. I said, damn, okay. Now there's two of them, right? There's Tyrone and Aaron. And he said, yeah, they're brothers. And I said, okay. And I've only been talking to you, Aaron. So you have a brother, Tyrone, yep. Correct? Now, are you older or younger?
He's 2 years older than me.
Okay. All right. And and I was talking to him yesterday, guys, and here's the thing that trips me out. We all kind of begin in the same way, whether it's fixing a mini bike or a lawnmower or whatever. So I kind of got on to getting Aaron's history to see how he learned and how he got introduced into this whole, you know, gearhead world, which we're all in, and I'm glad he's here. So how did you, what are you, like 40 something, 45, 40?
Yeah, 42.
Damn,
so,
young.
42 in about a month. So,
all right.
Yeah.
How old's your brother?
He's 44. So,
okay. Now who's your dad, Kerry?
Yeah, my dad, Kerry, he'll be 70, he's 76. So he'll be 77 this year.
Now he was a racer to begin with?
Yeah, so he used to race back in the 80s, 70s and 80s, obviously before I was born. But, yeah, he used to run Comp Eliminator back then.
Okay.
He had a T-bucket, altered, they used to run, and, you know, some crazy stories, the shit that he used to do, running brownfield heads and all the funny stuff.
Oh, yeah,
and
I remember that.
He used to build his own engines and all that back then, and, yeah, sort of used to race against like Gary Phillips and all the guys that are over here, legendary guys that still race now, Victor Bray and all that. So I first met Victor when I was a young fella going to the track, and remember being all starstruck when I was a little tacker.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's sort of how we got into it, I guess. And then, but before we started drag racing, we used to water ski a lot, and then sort of water skiing led into water ski racing, and done that until I was probably mid-20s.
Explain to the audience what type of skiing you did, because most people aren't aware of
So we used to do either two types of water ski racing. So we used to do long distance, so like anywhere from 80 to 100K races. So yeah, like what's that in miles? Yeah, 50-mile races type thing.
Yeah.
And then it's just pretty much use two ropes. Used to wrap up, so one rope behind your back, and then just 200-foot rope, and then go flat out for as long as you could from point to point. They used to call it like bridge to bridge races and stuff like that. But yeah, we used to do that.
Speed?
Yeah, how fast?
Oh, we used to, anywhere like the smooth water races, you get up to 100 mile an hour type thing.
What?
And yeah. And then
what kind of skis did you use?
Oh, they were just like normal, like wooden, just like you'd ski on like a 70-inch social ski, but it was like made out of wood, you know, so it's a lot heavier and chops through the water a little bit easier. But they start bouncing when you get over about 80 mile an hour. So by the time you hit 100, they're like.
I can't imagine how much core strength
it's in
your body to do that.
It takes a fair bit of training to get used to the speed, but then once you're used to it, it's not too bad. But the water's just so unpredictable is the thing, you know, like that's how a lot of accidents happen in that sport, because you can't predict what waves come, and, you know, you come around a corner and there could be another boat there, and, you know, you just hit but by the time the boat hits a big wave, or sees a big wave, by the time he tries to slow down, you're doing 100 mile an hour. He can only slow down probably 10 mile an hour, and you hit it. If you hit that big wave, you're in big trouble. You're coming undone. So a lot of accidents happen like that. And there's a river race in New South Wales called the Southern 80, and it's an 80-kilometre long race, and there's 146 turns. So it's pretty much the whole river. It's just a big snake, the whole river. But you'll be coming, the boat will be going around the corner, and then you'll be looking across at the boat because it's over there because your rope's so long. And then you're sort of like cutting the corner, but then he can't gas it too early because then he'll like tow you over.
He'll accelerate you out of the corner.
Yeah. So you just go on this massive whip. I remember one year he put my brother on a whip, and then I looked over and he was in the bushes. He's going through trees that were overhanging the river, and all I see was boom, he come out of this tree, and I'm like, holy shit, he's still there.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool. But yeah, no, it was good. It was good fun. But yeah, as I said, we stopped doing it because a lot of bad injuries from that sport, and my brother, including, has a bad injury from it.
Shoulder or something? Didn't he hurt his shoulder? I read.
Yeah, he's got a dead arm, so he pulled the nerves from his shoulder out of his spine and his neck, and then so you lose basically your movement in your hands and in your forearm and your whole arm, so your arm becomes dead. But luckily he got his full movement of his forearm and his tricep back, but he's got no bicep muscle, so he can't like lift his arm like that, you know.
Most people don't understand that water at that speed is like concrete.
Oh, it's anything over 60 mile an hour, even at like we still barefoot quite a lot, you know, a bit of that stuff, and you generally do that at about 47, you know, to 45 to 50 mile an hour, depending on like what kind of tricks you're trying to do. And even falling off that hurts, you know. But when you're doing 80 plus mile an hour, it is literally like concrete.
How fast have you gone barefoot before? Because when we used to barefoot race, because we used to do like these short drag things that we used to do, and you do it all on different types of equipment. So one of them was on a disc, like it's a round bit of wood, and the next thing was a barefoot. So my brother always used to do the barefoot because he was a better barefooter than I was. So I think he used to do about 75 probably mile an hour on his feet. Jesus, you think it would tear all the tendons on the feet, man? And
your feet get all blistery and shit like that from the water.
Really?
Yeah. It takes a while to get your feet to get used to it, because I don't do it that much anymore. Every time we go barefooting down Grafton, which is just down the road a little bit, my feet the next day kill. But my brother, because he does it all the time, his feet don't even hurt now. They just get used to it.
Now, what did you like? How did you start racing? Did you have street cars that you were pounding on?
Yeah, it was sort of like I had a Holden WB Ute, I think was my first car. That
a Ute, like a truck that's got like a truck bed?
Yeah, it's just like your El Camino type thing. Yeah. I had one of them as my first car, and then it had a 350 in it, and was just pretty average engine. So then Dad's like, oh, well, if you want to do it up a bit, we'll put some better cylinder heads and stuff like that on it. So we pulled the motor out, and we spent a little bit of money on it, and just, you know, started around 12 seconds. And then I'm like, oh, found a set of 18-degree heads, and then like, oh, we should build a 400. And then, you know, it goes for the next minute I had his credit card racked up to about 50 grand, and he's like, you need to stop. And then he made me pay it back, and I was only 17.
There you go.
That was a lot of years of working for free to pay that street car off, I can tell you that.
Yeah, but that's what gives you your work ethic. I mean, that's probably what gave you the drive and ambition that you have now. That was a big contributing factor.
Yeah, well, it was, you know, he would always help you out, but you had to always earn it. You know, you had to pay for it. There was no free ride.
Same with my dad.
You had to pay for it. But they got to the point, you know, like, well, as I said, he was just like, if you want to go fast, he goes, you got a 4,000-pound car. He goes, it's never going to be fast. He goes, just go and buy a proper, you know, we'll just buy a drag car, and we'll just start racing drag cars. So we pretty much bought his old altered back that he used to race, the exact car. And then he was driving that for a little bit, and then we ended up buying two of them, and then I ended up driving the other one. We're running two cars and comp eliminator with pro truck engines in them. I think I had a TRE Pro Truck engine, and then he bought one off Consideris, who was an engine builder over here a while ago. Yeah.
Now they had trucks there. They had Pro Stock.
No, we never had the trucks, but a lot of the engines came from over there to here. When your truck sort of shut, when it stopped, a lot of them engines come over, the Jenkins engines and all that.
Yeah.
And a lot of them still race in comp and these today. They're still a really competitive engine.
Did you build those, Darin, or did you work on the cylinder heads on those Pro Stock trucks?
Yeah. I mean, they were making
you used them to about
980 back then.
Yeah. They're pretty good. They're pretty good pieces. Still nice blocks, and it'd be good to see what you can make with one now with the cylinder heads you have. What
were they? What engines were they? Were they 500 cubic inch?
No, they're 358 cubes.
358. Okay.
Yeah. So like a. Wow. So, yeah, they're just like a mid. People are either using short decks or mid deck blocks.
Okay.
Like an Aurora block or a mid deck GM block in most of them.
Which are impossible to find anymore.
Yeah, they are.
I know where about 4 of them are, but you ain't letting them go.
They're like what, 9-inch deck height somewhere in that area?
No, 8.2, 8.5.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
That's why they're so hard to find. They're sort of. Everyone's sort of bought them up and has used them and either wrecked them and now you can't buy Iron Eagle darts anymore. It sort of becomes a bit hard for the Chevy stuff. I think that's why a lot of guys now, the M&M stuff's sort of starting to come through a bit.
Have you run one of those M&M blocks yet?
No, I haven't even seen one in person, if I'm being honest.
They look good.
Yeah, all my stuff's pretty. Like honestly, all my engines are pretty old. You know, I built a new one I built a new engine for the last race we done last year, and that was the first new engine that I actually put together in 10 years. Other than that, it's just been rebuilding what I had and just changing, intakes.
Yeah, you never stop working on them.
No, you just keep tinkering a little bit. But that engine was sort of, it had 7 sleeves in it. It's got concrete 3/4 of the way up of it. It's got welded water jackets from where I've kicked rods through the fucking thing. So the blow by was never, I'm like, yeah, it's just time to retire.
Let me put this up, Aaron, because this is pretty cool. This is someone from Australia. We've got about almost 50 people on here now. And this guy, his name is Steve Cowan. He says, "Hi, Tim. The Tremayne family have dedicated so much to Australian drag racing at the highest level, comp and super stock. We're going away, and I hope Pro Stock stays strong. Thanks, Steve Cowan, Brisbane." Thank you, Steve. We appreciate that. And
appreciate that.
To kind of put this in perspective for the guys that are on here from the States, when you look at his win record, this is the part that trips me out because, I think of Pro Stock in U.S., the prime time for me is 70 to 81 with the small blocks with Glidden and Johnson and all that time period. In Glidden, what do you have? 10 wins, which was like huge in Pro Stock back then. Yeah. You have like what, 11 or something, or 10 or 11?
I got 9 championships.
9.
Yeah, 9 championships. And then I think my brother's been runner-up. Like my brother's got 2 championships, and then he's been runner-up 11 times maybe.
What was your first year in Pro Stock?
I think 2000. I asked his dad this yesterday. Dad's real good with he can tell you what record we broke, when it was. But I think we started in 2007.
Well, you won 08, 9, 10, I think, right? 11.
Yeah, well, I think the first year I think we done was like a split year when we had just a Pro Truck engine in it, and that was when they'd just already gone to 400. So
okay,
we were a bit behind the ball game, and then we actually bought Greg Anderson's old Cavalier, and then put our first new engine in that, and then I think I won 4 in a row. I think maybe 2010 to 14.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we fell off the next few years because we just didn't have enough engine power, because cars weren't quick enough. And then that's when we sort of started. At that time, we were still buying engines, and then that's when I started talking with some other guys, and I said to Dad, well, we sort of probably need to look at doing a different avenue and go in our own direction. That's when we sort of jumped into just doing it ourselves.
Okay. So
when
you
was
go ahead.
When was the first 6-second run that you made?
My first 6-second pass, I think it was at Willow Bank, maybe just in a test day, I think it was, before a race. I think I got 698. Yeah, it was just a test day. But I don't know what year that was. We weren't the first definitely to run it because, as I said, back then we were definitely shy of a bit of power, you know.
But what was the power level at that time on your dynamometer?
Well, we were making about, so I think back then we were making probably like 1100, like 1090, 1100.
Okay, 1100.
I'll throw this up.
Your dynos down there read lower.
Mine especially honestly reads really low.
And usually they're 40 horsepower.
Yeah, I tell you, if you can make 1100 on my dyno currently, it'll run 6 seconds.
Okay.
You know, so
it's more than that.
Yeah, so people get like if they put their dyno engine on my dyno and they think it's going to make 1200, they're really going to go home really, really, really sad.
And that goes back to your numbers or your numbers. And
that's right. Exactly.
That's why we don't compare dyno numbers.
No, it doesn't. I know for a fact, like I've seen guys with, you know, book engines that come over that make 1220, and I put them on my dyno and make 1110, you know. And I'm like, well, that's why it runs 7.0s. You know?
There you go. And that was your brother that I put up. I had to put that up there. 688 at 199.
Yeah, so that's a current national record.
Is it really?
Yeah, so he set that last year at Sydney.
Right there.
Yeah, 688.5. I've gone 85.9.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was the weather was pretty good. It was still like 101.9 maybe correction when you ran that. So
that's 200s better than the previous record, right?
It was 87. It was 87.6 maybe.
Okay.
That was with leaded fuel, but no one's ever.
Oh.
When Lee ran that, we were on leaded fuel.
Okay. That makes a difference.
Yeah. We obviously compression wise and everything, we had to change a fair bit of stuff there. Piston design wise.
That's a good question. When you went from leaded to your unleaded blends, what did the static compression do on the engines?
I guess I mainly had to change piston design. You know, because
what about chamber?
My chamber was sort of, I guess it hurt us probably more than most people because the way my head was designed, the valve's super flat and on the exhaust it is too. You know, so the chamber's real shallow and my spark plug is like literally, it touches the inserts nearly, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's extremely prone to detonation and they don't like timing. You know, as it is, like 27 degrees, you put 29 in thing, you'll knock the rings out of it. It'll lift the land.
That's a fast burning fuel.
Yeah. So when we put unleaded in it, it was fucking like we ran it. I remember we ran it exactly as it was on a test day and it was fine. I'm like, because the engine needed a rebuild. So I was like, I'll run it before I rebuild it and I'll see if it hurts anything. So we done like four out the door runs and then didn't hurt anything. I rebuilt the thing and then freaking second pass, cooked the ringland. I'm like, fuck. So anyway, yeah, had to come back, change the piston design, pull some compression out of it. I softened the chamber a little bit on it and just try to move the plug away from the center of the cylinder just a touch, you know.
By softening chamber, did you just put the old 4 to 6 degree on there or did you lay it back in radius?
No, I just rolled it over a little bit. As I said, I didn't change it too much from what we had. But then, because it was like because both of our engines, we haven't. My brother and I have always sort of had two different cylinder heads on our cars. My head's always been a little bit bigger. His has been a bit smaller, but the combustion chamber is also a little bit different. The exhaust port's a little bit different. And his engine never really hurt pistons, whether mine used to. Never really understood too much. The only thing I could put it down to was the spark plug location was quite different between the two heads, and that was probably why mine was probably more prone to detonation. But as I said to Dad, I said we can't go. You know, we've gone this far with the cylinder head now. If we go and redesign the whole thing and change the cant and make it more like I guess like the Slorco billet head that that he does, like the intake valve's got like a massive cant on it across, and the chamber's completely different. You know, when you run that cylinder head and you look at the plug on the dyno, you can see why they can run, like, there's two different types of fuel that over here everyone uses. I use MS 109, Motorsport 109, and then a lot of the other guys use this fuel called ETS, and it's called, I think it's called ProDrag 105. But like, you'll tip it in and it is literally 15, 20 horsepower on the dyno everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah. But with the way my cylinder head is, it just doesn't like it. It just burns up. You know, it doesn't matter how much timing you pull out of it, how rich or lean, like, doesn't matter where the fuel is. The chamber's just too fast for the fuel, you know. So you'd either have to pull the compression back to, you know, 15 to 1 or 14.8 or something like that, and then it would live fine, I've got no doubt. But what you probably gained, you lost anyway.
Pulling only needing 27 degrees at 10,000 RPMs. Incredibly fast.
Yeah. I actually ran an engine yesterday on the dyno, and I had 28 and I pulled it back to 27 and it picked up 5. You know.
Here's a question for you from Joel. Now, Joel works for Pat Musey, does all the cylinder heads for him, and he wanted to ask you this, Aaron. Did you have to richen the mixture a bunch to run no lead?
No.
Okay.
So the specific gravity of the two fuels is very similar.
Yeah. We found that the main thing with unleaded fuel is it gets unstable if it gets hot. So in hot conditions, you got to really watch it. So I've got a fuel. Most of the guys now run a fuel cooler on the car.
Yeah.
So like the fuel will run through like a little ice tank to keep it cool, and then I put the fuel in the refrigerator before we run it, because if it gets out of suspension, it then goes into vapor a lot faster, and then that's when you seem to hurt shit.
So it boils off its light ends real quick.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you're gonna be water temperature. Like if you get the thing hot, water temp wise, it's rude. Like it's wrecked. You know, Water temp's got to be really cool. Fuel's got to be cool, and then generally we don't. Ever since we've sort of started doing that stuff, I haven't. Ever since I've used MS 109, I don't think I've ever hurt the engine. I heard it once on QM25, and then I've heard it a couple of times on the ETS stuff trying to run it. Not bad, just, you know, like you lose, 20% of link in a cylinder and it's starting to hurt, it's hurting the ring and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely the unleaded was a little bit challenging to start with, but it's fine now. Like we know where we need to be with the pistons, and as I said, you can't run the top ring at 110 thou down, 120 thou down. It's just there's just too much temperature up there. You've got to push it further down, get it away from the ringland.
What temperature are you talking about? You had to run it cool. What are you talking? Leaving it like 150
Fahrenheit? Oh no way! No, I mean 90.
Cold. 90.
Yeah.
Wow.
I want to. If I could go in there with ice on the radio, that'd be perfect. Yeah.
If that thing's dripping sweat when you're starting to launch it, that's the right temperature.
Yeah, that's exactly. The colder the better. If you done 2 dyno runs, if you done a dyno run at 100 degrees Fahrenheit and then you done one at 120, you'd lose 5 to 10.
Wow.
At 120. Yeah.
And that goes back to the basic physics of a Carnot engine. The difference in temperature is directly related to a difference in power. The colder you get that damn engine, the more power it's going to make.
But you think about it, though, when you guys are going to make a run, I mean, it's a 2-minute deal to make a run. By the time you get up there and do the burnout and back up, door open and all, I mean, think about the heat that you're building up then. It's going from what, 80 or 90 Fahrenheit?
Yeah, you generally stage at about 100 degrees.
100.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and by the end of the run, it'll be about 106. So it lifts about 6 to 7 degrees over a run. But the billet cylinder head's probably my head's got a pretty good water flow, and being billet, it takes longer to get hot than cast. But once it's hot, it obviously takes longer to cool. But it doesn't matter because it's a short period of time, so it's still efficient because you're not running for long. So we haven't really found any issues with running billet heads because it doesn't have enough time to build core temperature.
Okay. But it's the density of the molecules of the aluminum. It's billet versus cast, right?
Yeah.
Wow. like who does all your port work? I made the video for you, and you have a lot of cylinder heads that you're doing. I see them CNC different. One looked like a Mopar to me. Another one I couldn't tell what it was. It looked like a Cleveland almost. Just some.
Yeah, we just done a bit of Mopar development on, and it was a set of Slorco heads that a customer had.
Do you have those pictures? I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you have those pictures? Go ahead and put them up while he's talking about them. That way we can...
And because I saw the one that you had in a CNC machine, I was like, oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, there's one that we done recently.
There's one there in the CNC.
Yeah,
machine.
I think that's a Billet SP2 cylinder head that we make.
Okay. Let's see,
made that head because one of the guys over here was sort of had same thing. We had SP2 ports that we had already done port models on. Yeah, that's
it right there.
Yeah, and then they couldn't buy castings anymore. So, and there's a lot of guys that want to run standard lifter bore blocks and wanted a good cylinder head, and that was a good head. So we just pretty much turned it into a billet and done two different versions.
Touch on the cost of acquisition, and we were talking earlier about the cost of acquisition of getting these parts from the States there versus your cost in producing a billet.
The cost difference?
Yeah.
Yeah, well I guess what's a set of, because a set of castings from Edelbrock is I think about $3,500 US, right, for a set of SP2s or LSRs so then by the time you convert that, freight it here, pay tax on it, it's $6,000.
Wow.
You know, $6,000 Australian, that is, So then by the time you put obviously beryllium rings, inserts, all that into it, and then valve job it, port it.
$10,000 heads.
Yeah, it's a $10,000
yeah.
heads. And you're still not making much money at that, like really. So I can buy a set of billet, like I can buy billet for probably $800 a piece, roughly.
And
so
then it's spindle time.
Well, that's just machine time, yeah. There is a fair bit of machine work in a billet head, and obviously depending on what kind of head, the more work's involved. That Ford head that we done, there's a lot of work in that.
Now is that this? What's this?
No, that's the Chevy SP2 as well.
Okay.
I did send a photo of the.
I think it's this one.
Yes, that head. Yeah. That's a really neat cylinder head. That we've made a crazy amount of power with that on an Australian Pro Stock deal. The guy never actually got to run it, but it was literally the engine was 5 better than mine at the time, like 12 months ago.
Now what's that? It almost looks like an SC1 head or something. It's
like based off of a D3.
D3, okay.
The D3 with like valve guides, the exhaust valve angles moved around, and then so's the intakes moved a little bit. It's still 9 degrees, 9 by 4 type thing, but yeah, it's based off of a D3.
But it's changed
like, yeah,
and rotated a bit.
Yeah, rotated. Yeah. Because I really found with the Pro Stock stuff, like a while ago, like 10 years ago, I guess we probably tried to really start trying to chase CFM and working out, trying to get more, trying to think, if we can get more air into the engine without going too big, we're going to make more power. We'll be able to just turn the engine higher, and it just wasn't the case. Every time I'd seem to make the port just a little bit bigger, and even if it picked up 10 CFM, it never showed. If anything, got lost. As I said, everyone wants 500 CFM, and that's what sells cylinder heads, but it's not 90% of the times. It's not what they need.
You only need to make 1,200 horsepower. You only need 480 CFM.
Yeah.
So,
my best.
The way I look at it is, if I have the ability to make 500, that just allows me to get airspeed,
exactly right,
and take the flow down to where I need it.
Yeah. I mainly work off cross-sectional area with the Pro Stock stuff. Port shape to a degree, floor angle, like how the depending on what the torque's doing with the engine, I'll change the floor angle and the rake of the port. But mainly, yeah, like if you're 3.7, 3.8 minimum, you're too big. I've never been able to get it to pull fuel. Not if you try to run it how I run my cars. Like you can probably do it if you're going to have a manifold that might be completely different to mine. But the way my manifold is, the way I like to run my engines, I like to run a really short intake, and try and get my power band as high as I can.
Do you run a lot of volumetric or cross-sectional area increase, like 800 in the plenum diameter?
Everyone's sort of around. Yeah, everyone's sort of around the 2.7 now, 2.750 now compared to where, back in the day, I guess we're probably, 2.550, 2.600.
See, you've touched on a really good point, because I often say there's more than one way to skin this cat.
Yeah.
And it's like you can have more or a higher airspeed, localized velocity, and run more taper, or do it like I've done on this thing I'm working on now, which is having a higher average airspeed and less taper. So, and accomplish the same thing.
It does, yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, just because the cylinder head doesn't work on someone's engine doesn't mean that the cylinder head's wrong. It just means that the combination's not correct,
Exactly.
You've got to make the combination work. That's why you just sort of got to. It's always to me. It's like if you ever build a brand new engine, you don't very often just nail it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, yesterday, me and Dad, we ran an engine of mine, and all I done was reblock this engine, because this is the engine I was talking about, the 7 sleeve. So I actually got a brand new mid deck block off someone, and so we just reblocked this engine. And we're running it yesterday and had a new camshaft I wanted to test in it. And we switched cams, and I mean, the camshaft as far as duration at 50, lobe separation, lift were identical. It's just that they had the same exhaust lobe, but they had a different intake lobe, but only different by design. It was just a different profile. I put the cams in at the same spot, like 118 intake centerline. First run, 20 horsepower difference. Right? 20 horsepower. I retarded the cam 1 degree, and then it picked up to within 10. But one cam made the newer cam made 10 more horsepower down low, but then lost 10 up high.
Yeah.
So it's just its cylinder pressure is just so critical with where it wants it, and then like valve overlap versus cylinder pressure is just where they sort of want to make power. So it's really just finding that key to when to shut the valve and when to open the valve, I find.
Over the years we've went from a 55, like in the pro truck engines, 55 millimeter cam, 60, 65, 70, 75 now.
Yeah.
How much power do you attribute to the increase just in camshaft and valve train technology?
How much do you think it's worth?
Yeah. Over the last 10 years, I'd say it's been 25, 30 at a minimum.
It would have to be, yeah. Back from, I think when we started, we were running 55s.
Same head, same everything.
Yeah, but I think, because with where camshaft development stuff's come from, but in saying that, like, I still find like some of the old grinds for some reason still seem to work quite well. Like I think my brother's engine's got a grind in it that'd be 10 years old, and I've tried the newer stuff, and for some reason just doesn't like it.
And you know what's funny about what you just said? In newer stuff, did you mean by going from 55 to 65 or 60 to 60?
No, I just mean just in profile.
Or just in profile.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, some of the
pretty much with the Chevy stuff, you're sort of tied at 63 because you can't put a bigger bore in it because of the cylinder wall down the bottom. It gets too thin, and then the oil gallery will run into that. You could probably sneak 65 in there if you got creative, but we just pretty much all run 63 clamshells in ours. We went to the roller guided lifter a while ago from the 850 wheel to the 925. I thought I'd see more in that than I did. I didn't really see anything. You could probably be a bit more aggressive with it, but with the camshaft, obviously, because you've got a lot bigger lifter wheel. But yeah, I didn't really see too much in that. But again, you could probably get a little bit more aggressive with it compared to like the 850 wheel cam. You might be able to sneak a one or 2 degrees more in there at 200.
what I found with the bigger core camshafts, especially when you're getting into 68 and 75 millimeter stuff, is the anti-track changes completely. I mean,
Your timing events.
when we're used to using bigger bowls, that goes out the window. Taller short sides, that goes out the window. Everything's aimed down like a 4-valve.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What we call now a high Mach index port, which is something that it flows as good, maybe a little less, but it can withstand a lot higher air speeds, which is what it is. It seems.
Yeah. Guess by camshaft change.
Yeah.
Cam location, tunnel-wise.
They've been capitalizing on that direction, so if you use the old style port, you're not really going to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll literally see a drop in torque usually.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess we haven't really been, that's I said, ever since I've started building the engines, we've pretty much been at 60 mil. So, and then going from the 60 to the 63, we might have gone, I've been all the way to probably quite aggressive at, like let's just say, I think I've been, the most aggressive I've been is probably 208 type thing at 200. So on a 63 mil cam, that's pretty quick. And yeah, what kind
of LSAs do you run on this thing?
Oh, anything from 118 to 190 and a half, 120.
I was thinking.
The Mopar stuff seems to like a little bit wider.
Because it's
really overlap. Yeah, a little bit more exhaust duration, a little bit more overlap. So I guess spread it out another half degree to degree and just put a bit more exhaust on it.
Now you build engines for other racers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For the same class that you're in.
Yeah, we build a fair few other engines for other pro stock guys, but sort of try and give what you can best. But yeah.
That's what I wondered. I always wondered because I know that Darin had mentioned to me once before, like Rear Morrison, they would build lease engines. So, I mean, if you're building an engine for someone else, like how am I trying to put this? Like if you're going to make your own engine, you're going to make, 900 horsepower. Are you going to give this guy the same engine and make 900 or is it going to make more? Do people ever think like that and say, oh, you're building my engine, they're going to not make it as fast as their stuff?
I guess everyone thinks like that.
Yeah.
No one, and that's the hardest thing when you race in the class, I guess you do build engines for.
Okay.
But a lot of the customers that I have had, the guys have come to me and asked me to do the engine for a reason. Because they're either struggling and they're spending money somewhere where they're not getting what they want. So then they want to go faster. So they see that we run fast. So, and I've never had a customer come to me and go slower ever. So, but also a lot of them times when a customer comes to you, he's always bringing you what he has, right? So then you're starting from something that isn't ideal. Like I honestly, as I said, it's not America. We don't build 20 engines and lease them out like Darin used to. Like you're generally trying to fix other people's shit or put new cylinder heads on it or try and fix the cylinder head that someone else has ported or jacked up or whatever. And then all you can do is improve on what they've got, I guess.
Right.
I don't think I haven't had many engines where I've just had a clean slate and just said, build me a new engine. So, but
the old adage of people saying, well, I got engine from him and I know it's not making as much power as his stuff. That's never been true in my case. And anyone I've ever seen or ever worked for, because it does an engine builder absolutely no good to limit the power for a customer.
Right.
No,
you want him to do good.
Exactly right. You're trying to learn yourself anyway. There's no point in you doing something to an engine that isn't going to try and help you learn. Like if anything,
exactly.
I definitely have tried a couple of different things on my engines and customers' engines because every engine you build, you're trying to learn something from that engine. Whether it's a slight rocker ratio change or a slight profile change or whatever it might be. And a lot of the times I've had my engine where I've ran my camshaft in their engine, then put a slightly different cam in it to see if it was any better. And then if it wasn't, I'd just then send that other cam back, get it reground, and then put it in their engine,
Yeah.
So you're always trying to make a step forward regardless. But, our cars work really well. And me and Darin drive quite well. So I think that's why like we probably have the runs on the board, and honestly, it's a lot of it was not so much now, but dedication, especially when I was younger. You know, I sort of lived and breathed it, and really thought of nothing else for a lot of years to become successful in this class. But you can't build an engine for a guy, and then if he goes out and misshifts and slips through the clutch and this and that, and you go 690 and he goes 95, you're like, well, 300-400 of that just in your driving.
Right.
So it's got to be a key thing, and getting the car right. And I have tried to help guys through and through with it, with all that sort of stuff. But it is a very hard thing to work with people in this class, because everyone's emotional. Everyone wants to be as fast as they can be. They want to beat you at the end of the day, and that's fine, but you've also got to be willing to spend the money to be able to do it as well.
It's hard to explain to somebody. It's like, okay, I gave you 40 extra horsepower, but you have to change other things in order to capitalize on that. And if you don't change anything within the car, you could piss that 40 horsepower away in first and second like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's the same token. Is like, if I give someone an engine and I'll be like, what gear ratios do you have in the car? And they'll be like, oh, this and this and this. I said, that's not going to work. You're not going to get out of low gear when you get this engine, because it makes 30 more foot-pounds of torque. So then you got to help them with the car, and then, as I said, how to run the clutch and all the rest of it. But it can be challenging. I don't care our main thing at the moment with our business is just trying to get our product line as good as we can get it. And I want to do less and less engine stuff as my business goes on. Because it just ties you up too much doing engine stuff as far as I'm concerned. I need to try and make the business make as much money as I can, and obviously spend time with my wife and kids. So it's like, I love the pro stock stuff, but it's definitely it's not what it used to be with all these new class changes and the way that our sports run over here at the moment. It's just not.
What are you doing with the new LS stuff that you're working on?
The new Billet LS. Well, I sort of guess we had a couple of customers over here who asked us about Billet blocks and all the rest of that, and I'm like, well, maybe there's an avenue there for it. My main machinist that I got here, Dean, he's really keen to get into that sort of stuff. He used to make them where he used to work anyway, so I've got a good platform there for as far as someone making the blocks. But just want to try and diversify the business a bit more and get more product and that over to you guys, and start, obviously trying to push our products a bit more in America and get a bit more work avenue through you guys instead of just being so localized. We still do sell a fair bit of stuff over there, like, valve covers, and we sort of ship from you guys to Canada to New Zealand and all the rest of it. But we'd definitely much rather try and get into the bit more of the block market, and I'd like to sell a lot more cylinder heads over there, to be honest, but it just seems to be a hard market to tap into.
Well, I'm curious, the landed cost here, I mean, it goes the opposite way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
so
you're always going to gain.
It would be cost effective for Americans to buy from you, would it not?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, that's the idea. We just got to sort of, work out price-wise of where would be at compared to what the guys over there are selling stuff for, and if it's achievable, well, hopefully we can make a good enough product where we can sell it.
I mean, there's only two big manufacturers, right? Blueprint, Dart. Who else makes engine blocks?
Yeah, well, we'll be making billet blocks, but
billet. But still, I mean, you might even be only a few $100s more. I don't know when you look at the whole thing.
Yeah, well, I think that's it. I have crunched the numbers on. I think we can be pretty competitive price wise. So just be a matter of getting a couple out there and getting them into cars. And we've sold a fair few intakes and stuff like that to guys like Mike Fortune and all that, running LSs, and a couple other guys that run good over there. So just a matter of, I guess, try and work with the contacts that I have and get a bit more into your guys.
How old were you when you worked with Noonan?
I think that would have been.
Noonan, you said? Is that who you said?
Yeah. So I used to rent when we first started on the Pro Stock deal. I sort of met with Jamie and he was doing V8 supercar stuff back then. And I started renting a part of his shop, which is right near the shop that I have now. And then I bought a dyno off of him, a Superflow NSCR dyno off him. And then he had his dyno. We had side-by-side dyno. So I used to do my pro stock stuff and then all that out of his building. I think we've done that for about 5 years or so, 5, 6 years. Yeah. And then I when he was just before he moved to America, I moved out into my own shop and then, bought our own CNC machines and, just kept buying more and more machinery and tried to turn the business into, something profitable and something fun.
Let me ask you this. Somebody's asking this question, and because you're talking billet blocks. So he asked, Pontiac 411 says, doesn't Australia cast engine parts?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just going on the billet because once you get to the high horsepower, that's what you want. 2,000 horsepower.
I guess,
turbo.
A lot of guys use cast blocks over here. They'll use like the LSRs or the darts or whatever. Okay. But castings are very, as Darin would know, that they're super hard to get it like a really good casting. Like it's a lot of development, a lot of money up front to design a cast block and then have it molded, casted.
Yeah.
Let me guess. There in Australia, it probably costs about $180K. It
would be about that, yeah. It's a lot of outlay, yeah.
Wow.
And then a lot of the foundries over here, it's time frame too. Like even because we were looking at getting our own heads casted, and then obviously like a guy over here, Nathan Higgins, he gets his own castings and that done by a foundry down in Melbourne, and they do really nice castings and that. But yeah, the time you get it's a big process,
Is Darin Morgan still doing billet stuff?
Who, sorry?
Darin Morgan?
I don't think so.
Okay. That was 20 years ago. They're in Australia.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah, no, not that I know of. There used to be a company over here, Racer Pro, but they shut down. They used to do all the castings for CHI and all that back then, but they shut down. I think, really? And now, there's that pretty much the one foundry that I know of that do most of the aftermarket cylinder heads and manifolds and stuff over here for
so you basically have one foundry that'll do it?
No, there's a few, but I think this is the one that most got. I think. Don't quote me on that because, as I said, I've never really looked that much into it because I guess I know for me, I just like billet shit.
I like it.
So I haven't really. We've looked into it slightly, but I'm like, I just want to make billet stuff, so I'm not too interested in the cast stuff. Like as I said, we poured all the Brodex castings, we poured Edelbrock castings, we poured etc. But the only thing is, it isn't that cost effective, especially for you guys. Like if you were to buy a set of GV2 Edelbrock heads from me, by the time I ship them over, pour them, do all this, and send them back, well, it's going to be probably a lot cheaper for you guys to buy them through BES,
Right.
But I guess casting wise, it's probably not a bad thing for us to look at, but I just haven't got there yet, and I just don't know if I guess more concentrating now on our billet range and our product range for our website, and
I'm not sure if your import cost on billet material. I'm suspecting, let's put it this way, I suspect that your import cost on billet material is far less than ours.
Far less than yours?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure, eh? Because most of your billet would come from China or...
A billet for a cylinder head, about how much does it run for you? And you can get it locally, right?
Yeah, it's about a billet is about $850, $900.
Oh, shit, yeah. It's
Australian. So it's like what, 500?
Well, even then it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Far cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like the high grade T6061. So it's good material. But yeah, our buy price for billet's quite good.
Our billet costs are going through the roof.
Yeah.
Well, it's no different. I mean, we have all these casting issues here in the States. There's not enough foundries. No one wants to do anything. It's to get anything casted if you have issues with it, well.
And here in the U.S., we've had a horrific brain drain, too. I mean, all the older guys that were tool masters of tooling are gone.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely, yeah.
a lot of the younger guys are coming in making the same mistakes they made 50 years ago.
Yeah,
So-
because there was no one's there to teach them.
Yeah.
And no one's interested these days. In Australia,
I
it's
know.
really hard. It's really hard to get good employees and all that. I'm very lucky at the moment. I've got a really good bunch of guys that work here. But yeah, it's in the next 20 years, it's not going to be a great thing. I can tell you that.
So Raz, let me ask you this. So product-wise, you got the block, you got some heads, Mopar heads, the Ford head. What other heads do you have product line?
So pretty much we do a fair few different versions, obviously, of just porting castings. We do anything from the, as I said, GV2 heads to we make our own Billet Windsor cylinder head.
Okay.
Then we do a Billet D3, and then we're working on the Billet LS head.
Yep.
We do a Billet Chevy head, which is obviously a Canada Valve Pro Stock cylinder head. We obviously port LS2, 3, 1 castings. We do the BR7 casting, BR3 castings, BR7-3 castings. We do it, SB2 cylinder heads, cast version and billet version.
What about intakes and oil pans and
what
else do you make?
We also do a lot. We've got a big product line. So we sell a lot of oil pumps and auto verti. I do it like a daily setup, but it's obviously our own version of a Billet LS pan we use an auto verti pump, not a daily. Seems that we sell a lot of them. It's a very good product. We make the pump slidable, so you don't have to worry about belt tension and all that. The bottom bolt-in tray, instead of the gauze being glued in, it's all bolted in, so you can just pull it out. If you ever have an issue, you want to check your scavenge section, you can just pull it out, remove it, clean it, put it back in.
Right there.
Yeah, right there. That's a 5-stage version of it.
Okay.
We do that for a Windsor as well, in a bigger version, and a Chevy. So yeah, that's definitely a product that I'd like to try and push more into over your guys' way. That's for sure. I think it'd be a pretty also cost-effective product to buy from that perspective. But yeah, and then from billet timing covers, valley covers, boosted intakes, twin carb intakes, yeah. And then
the Australian Supercar series. And by the way, you might want to go through all the pictures you have of his shop while he's talking about his product line.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the Supercar series is amazing to me. I mean, those guys have a level of technology and engine development that is better than Pro Stock by a long shot in a lot of cases. And most people don't realize it.
Yeah, well, they now run LSs, so they changed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they changed format about, was it 3? This would be the 3rd year, I think. So they run a factory GM LS 3-cylinder head that's ported by GM, and they're not allowed to do anything to it other than valve job it, etc.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the cost got out of hand.
Yeah, so they don't have the same Chevy engine that you would know that I used to work on, and that when
I was stunned at the level of tech that they had.
Yeah,
the engineering tools they used to develop those engines.
It was pretty cool back in the day when all that stuff was around. But yeah, they've sort of, to try and minimize costs, they now use plastic LS3 intake manifolds and try to bring the cost down. But in my opinion, it's definitely made the sport a lot more boring.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not the same.
That's happened across all.
When they take the R&D out of the engines, they just
thank you.
Yeah.
It's freaking boring.
Yeah,
it's boring. That's right. And then all these companies end up spending shit tons of money on trying to find stupid shit to work on instead of something fun. Yeah. They done the same at the end, even with the Chevys, like became controlled camshafts, controlled this, controlled that. Cranks had to be 16.5 kilos. Pistons had to be 400 grams. Like your hands were tied, and then if you couldn't make every engine that was built had to go to another engine shop and then get dyno tested.
Yeah.
If you made any sort of change to the engine at all, you couldn't even change the valve job without it going there, getting retested, rescanned, etc. Yeah, so it just takes the fun out of the, development side of things.
It took the very level of competition from up here to just
Yeah.
average. And
Yeah.
I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it a driver's car,
Yeah,
you know.
series, yeah. But they did.
It's
It gets
boring.
wrecks a class, but yeah. And then now, because now there's only one engine builder that does the Chevys, and there's one engine builder that does the Fords. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it wrecks. It also, like for shops like us, where we could have probably done some of the, you know, like maybe one team we could have supplied engines for them. And back in the day, there was really good money in that. Yeah. So
same with NASCAR here, you know, in the 90s. We did they had qualifying engines, which were nothing more than an Australian Pro Stock engine. You know, that's what you did. You took the parts you had and you pushed it to the limit. It was like a comp eliminator engine.
Yeah.
You only had to run two full laps. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 100 and some horsepower more. But
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Those were fun.
Yeah.
Because you're pushing the limits. If you're not pushing the limits, it's not fun.
Right.
But they get rid of all that to try and save costs. But does it really work? I don't know.
Someone wants to ask you this, Aaron. He says, Aaron Tremayne, are you the guy that builds 1,000 horsepower SB2 engines for the street?
Yes, I've done that.
There it is, Eric. Thank you for being a member.
And in Australia, that's quite a feat. That's not like here in the States. Believe me, the laws associated with that.
Yeah, we do get better pump fuel than you guys, but so.
Yeah, but your laws, holy shit.
Yeah.
You get caught street racing there, they just crush your car.
Yeah, literally.
Actually, they do, don't they?
Yeah. You can't. There's not really any street racing around like when I was a young fella over here anymore. If you want to go racing, there's lots of stuff you can do at the track now, but they have like track days where everyone goes and takes their cars and they go do burnouts and power drags down the straight and burnout comps and so there's plenty of stuff you can do if you've got a really fast street car, but yeah, they're very strict on rules with what you can and can't do.
They have no sense of humor.
No, definitely not. If your tires stick out by your guards in a four-wheel drive by a quarter inch, you'll get a fine.
I can let people understand the difference in the laws. In Texas, I'm out, and this has actually happened. I'm out tuning an 850 horsepower street car with two laptops in the front seat, and a cop pulls me over and asks me not to do what I'm doing where I'm doing it, and walks away. In Australia, that car would be crushed flat 6 inches.
Yeah, if you were driving it hard, you'd be in a lot of trouble.
Wow. And the environment, I mean, that's why they don't have leaded gas. It's, you know, the green.
Yeah, our government's just all screwed up over here, but honestly, we're probably in the people we have in power at the moment would be the worst government I've ever seen in this country. Yeah, it's really bad. So hopefully that gets changed soon and we can get someone with a bit of backbone in this country that actually will stand up for the Australian people, you know.
Here, I'll put up a couple pictures. We can kind of go through your shop. You can kind of tell us what we're looking at. Because I thought it's amazing. Your shop is so clean, you know, and it looks huge with all the stuff that you have. So that's your like a work table that you have where you're.
Yeah, so that's our firearm. So that's a scanning, digitizing arm.
Got it.
That's why it's bolted onto a big steel thick plate because obviously you can't have any movement when you're trying to scan or digitize something. So we'll do all our port modeling and all that like single point probing from the firearm. So I think that head there is just bolted down there because we scan the chamber to do a piston mold.
Got it. Very cool.
What software do you use? Like
we use PowerShape.
Okay.
The Autodesk. That's just part of the machine shop. So VF5, 5-axis machine, then the VF4. That's also got it. They both got TR210 5-axis rotary tables in them. So we make the heads and all that on them, port heads.
That's a 5-axis machine there, right?
Yeah.
5TR.
Yeah. Both their machines are pretty much the same because one's a little bit bigger than the other.
And then is this the same machine?
Yeah, that's the same machine. Yeah.
And
so that's one of the SP2 heads.
SP2, that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah, that's the Billet SP2 head.
How far do you take? I'm sorry. How far do you take that in that? Do you put the valve guides in on that machine?
No, I'll ream them we'll ream the guides. Yeah, so we'll obviously drill it, then ream it so it's perfect for size, and then just fit them by hand.
Okay. I was just wondering if you actually bored them and ream them in the machine.
No. We'll still just I'll just ream them in the epoch.
Okay.
Now, what do those flow? These SB2s?
The small version, the small chamber version will flow about 450 with a 200 and I think 280 on the exhaust. Okay. And then the large chambers, I think, is about 430 maybe. We do two different deck thicknesses. One's got a 70cc chamber or 68 maybe, and then I think that version there it's got it's maybe 48 type cc.
So the 450 CFM version with a smaller chamber on a 400. I mean, you're talking about a 9,500 RPM engine.
Yeah. I think I built an engine with them that was 470 cubes. It was 470 cubes. It was 12.8 to 1, 12.9 to 1, and I ran it on pump fuel with a single 4-barrel, and I think it went 980 or 980 at 8,000.
Wow.
See, that's one good thing about these cylinder heads. Like he's talking about the move this much air. You can put them on huge engines, bring the engine RPM down. And it's still. But the thing is that was like a pro street type engine for a guy running in a Tirana. So he wanted a camshaft that wasn't too aggressive, and so it had 840 thou valve lift. Yeah. But soft profiles, so it's just not going to hurt anything. Mm-hmm. And you can, as I said, you can still nearly make 1,000 horsepower. Yeah, you can run the hell out of the thing.
Yeah.
That's the drag and drive stuff.
Yeah.
By the way, on your Australian Pro Stock engines, what's the gross lift you run on those things?
We pretty much run most of the cams we have are between 580 to 6. I've run as big as stuff as 620. 610.
I'm talking gross lift.
Oh, gross lift. Yeah, probably 1 inch and 90 to 1.
Okay, you're running 1.1. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw something that it said that the
on the Mopar stuff, you can run more because it's a 68 mil cam. So
and it's a wider bore spacing with a bigger bore and more valve area.
So you can put But I have found that putting more lift in it, I don't really see much in it.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of times. Yeah. As I said,
how much? What are you talking duration? 272.
Yeah, we're generally around 274.
Okay.
No, we're generally around mid 270s, low 270s, and 306 type thing on the exhaust.
I mean, current 500 stuff's right about 272.
Yeah. So we're probably still a touch more.
But that's a 75 millimeter cam.
Yeah.
Most people don't realize that as you go up in cam core size, you put more in the low, you can control it better.
Yep.
That's 100%. Yeah. The more efficient the cylinder head, obviously, the less intake duration you can run.
This is 1020.
Yeah, it's 1020 bench. Yeah.
I like this picture here. There you go.
Yeah, that's just the engine assemble area. Okay. So you've got 2 bays in there, and then there's a fair few engines, so there's a bit of shit everywhere at the moment. But
how many guys you got working for you right now?
Including my wife and me, there's 6 of us. So.
And this is a shop. If you didn't see it, Darin.
That's a nice place.
It is nice, real nice.
Yeah. So me and Dad bought the building. I think we've been here. 6 years? We bought this place 6 years ago, brand new. So we were renting the place before that, so it was good to sort of buy our own building and get out of where we were. But real estate over here is very expensive. The luxury of having the massive shops like you guys have, and having 20, 30 meters between your mills and stuff. We don't have that luxury here. You'd pay $10 million for the building.
and your electricity costs there are enormous.
Yeah,
are they really?
Yeah, we're about, I think we're about $2,000 a month what we spend here. Electricity.
Yeah, that
our fuel.
Let's
at the
put it
moment
this way:
is
it's almost double what it is in the States.
Yeah. But yeah, our fuel over here is insane. Like we're paying.
What's gas cost there?
Well, diesel. I drove past a service station this morning, and because of everything that's going on in the world, it used to it's normally about $2 per liter, right? Which a liter is just over a quart. So a quart is, I think, 0.89 of a liter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
you're correct. So you multiply
4 to a gallon.
Multiply times 4.
Yeah.
Way I remember it.
So
you're paying how much a liter?
Well, over here at the moment, a service station I drove past this morning was $3.30 a liter.
Okay.
Wow. So 3 times. That's $12 a gallon.
Four times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, if you've got I went and fueled my truck up the other day. It was like $2,500.
Yeah,
because
your engine costs out of Australia.
And now they say we're going to run out of fuel within a month, so that's going to be fantastic when no one's going to be able to drive.
That's going to hit everywhere.
Oh man, it's crazy.
It's going to get bad. Everything's going to double again.
I don't want to think about it. But you're right.
I know it's not a great time to be in business. It's a bit worrying, but hopefully everyone doesn't listen to the governments this time around over here anyway, and just keeps moving on with their life. And
the one thing I have found in my 50 years of doing this, 40 years professionally, is racing is somewhat recession proof, because we're in an industry where this is something that people want to do and don't need to do, and for some reason that kind of overrides.
Yeah.
And we've been through the gas crisis of the 70s. David Rare and these engine builders will tell you it didn't hurt them a bit. It didn't even phase them. Yeah. Didn't phase them.
Yeah. Yeah. I know there's definitely a machine shop as far as the, like honing blocks, decking, boring, all that. With engines, we're just as busy as ever. It's just more the product line, like, as I said, the website sales and stuff have slowed down since I guess the war started over there. Everyone's gone into a bit of a saving mode as far as spending on consumables with their cars.
It used to be, here, give me the power and just tell me how much it costs, to how much power can I get for this amount of money. Mm-hmm. And now all engine builders, whether you're in Australia or here, we got to be really frugal and throw what we know at it and know what we're doing in order to get the customer what he wants. It's flipped 180 degrees.
And even so, like, even if I'm quoting new engines and stuff, you've got to sort of try and make sure you're quoting what the guy needs, not just what you think he might, not what he might want, because then you're quoting what he wants, and it's $100,000 engine and his budget's $30,000.
But then again, the flip side of that coin is the engine builders that know more collectively within their teams could capitalize on that.
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah.
They get more power for less cost, is what I'm getting.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point of, doing your own cylinder heads and stuff like that, because your 23-degree heads is going to be better than the AFR he's going to buy, or your 18-degree cylinder head's going to be better than the one he's going to buy from Brodex. So you're going to make another 100 horsepower because the work you're going to do on the manifold and on the cylinder head is going to be a lot better than he's going to buy off the shelf.
Right.
Or the other guy down the road's going to buy. The other engine builder down the road's going to buy.
So the competition is still here. We're just competing against each other more. So than on the race
definitely.
Yeah. I'll go down through some of these comments and see. Let's see. This gentleman said Racer Pro had some good stuff 25 years ago. Not sure who Racer Pro is.
So that was the company that used to cast cylinder heads here in Australia.
Okay.
They done they used to do sprint car, like the 270 high port head. They done that, which is like a copy of like the Brodex.
Yep.
I think, or maybe, yeah. And then they done like an 18-degree, 23-degree cylinder head. They done a fair few different cylinder heads back in the day. But yeah, again, I don't know why they closed up, or whether it was just they couldn't make enough money. I'm not sure, but
who there did that 14-degree cast iron cylinder that took America by storm? And then RHS bought him out later. Do you remember that? That was
the
2000.
The cast
2000.
iron head.
Yeah, it was a 14-degree cast iron head.
I know the
Pro
14-degree.
Action.
Pro Action. I thought Pro Action was Kiwi Pro.
Okay.
Well, that's what I was told. Again, not sure if it's true. Because I remember the Pro Action cylinder heads, and then I told that was like a version of the Kiwi Pro, because we used to use the Kiwi Pros back on, because they were around when we were doing ski racing. Because that was you had to use it. In one of the classes we ran, you had to use a 23-degree cast iron head, and that was the head that we used to use. But yeah, I don't. As far as
and to let everybody know what we're talking about, back then, the Pro Action took a 23-degree cylinder head, raised the ports, and made it very, very efficient. It was an awesome. And then took it to 14 degrees, which is even more awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that though. When you're talking about skiing, one thing is you're racing with a ski, but you got the boat that's racing, and that probably had class rules or whatever that you're.
Yeah. So there's all different boat classes, same as drag racing. You had super class, which is like pretty much unlimited engine, unlimited skiers, 250-foot ropes, railed skis. And then they'll be like, these days, they're twin turboed Mercs making 1800 or big blocks. They'll tow skiers at 130 plus mile an hour. Yeah. It's crazy.
Not this skier.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And then
130 is almost terminal velocity. Do you realize
man,
that?
it's I'm telling you, like one of my friends, Justin Cadden, he's retired now, but there's videos of him doing bridge to bridge, and they're sitting on 127 mile an hour for like 20 minutes.
Wow.
You realize the skydiver falls at 145 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? 145 constant.
Yeah. If you fall off, you're
dead, man.
You're gone.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. That's why they shut at the moment. Ski racing's they're not allowed to race over here at the moment. They've completely closed, because I think last year or the year before, I think there's like 6 deaths in the 1 year.
Wow.
Just people dying from either falling or a couple of people running into houseboats and stuff like that. And
I don't think wingsuiting skydiving has that death rate.
But you got to remember, like the amount of people that do it compared to so like it's not like you've got 10,000 people ski racing. It's it's not a massive sport, especially in Australia. So a lot of the guys that ski race now are going over to New Zealand and ski racing over there, because they're still racing over there at the moment.
They have less rules, regulations.
I'm not sure. Again, mate, I'm not haven't really done it for a lot of years now, but sort of still know a few people who do still ski race. But yeah,
is there a speed record for on skis?
They stopped speed record stuff, I think, in 2010 maybe, because people dying like that, like people trying to do 100 mile an hour plus on their feet and stuff and killing themselves. And yeah, they used to do speed stuff, but yeah, that sort of stopped.
Do you recall what the fastest speed was
on a single ski? I don't know. No, I don't know.
Damn, man.
Well over 140 though.
Yeah, I remember there's guys. The big thing back in the day was trying to barefoot over 100 mile an hour. That was I think Brett Wing back in the day was the first guy to do it, but it was behind they don't behind like an hydroplane, like with the blown fucking methanol engine in it, and they just go out and hold it flat for like 10 seconds, and it'd be like nearly dying.
That's death on a stick.
It's so stupid.
Jamie says Torque Power bought Racer Pro and is developing a range of 15, 18, and 23-degree cylinder heads cast in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Torque
Power mainly does Holden stuff at the moment.
Okay.
So that would definitely be a question for our friend Pete Murray. He would know a lot, probably more about that than I would.
Now, most the people here in the States are almost completely unaware of Holden cylinder heads engine design, period. But Holden's pretty big over there, is it not? I mean,
yeah,
because it was made there.
Yeah, relative. Well, it's not anymore, but yeah, relatively. They I guess back in the day, they're pretty good engine to get power out of compared to like a 23-degree small block Chevy, because the cylinder head, especially the later model stuff with like the VN style head, it's a lot nicer cylinder head than a 23-degree.
It's like a Buick layout, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
All the ports are aimed at bore center.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just a splayed valve symmetrical head.
There's still aftermarket heads coming out for those things.
Yeah, well, Torque Power do the people that make them, and I think Pete Murray, who you know, I think he's made like 970 horsepower. They done a custom, like an aftermarket block that Torque Power do, and they made a high compression, big cammed engine not that long ago that made nearly 1,000. That Pete done the heads and manifold for, so that was pretty impressive.
So it was Holden and Ford really the only two American manufacturers there, or at least offshoots from American manufacturing?
We don't make anything in Australia anymore. Like Ford closed up, and
but back in the day when you were growing up.
Yeah, when I was growing up, you were either Holden or Ford guy. Yeah.
Cleveland.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we were racing cars, it was either someone had a 351 or a 308 Holden, you know.
Okay. Who won?
The Ford.
I had to say that one.
Yeah. The Ford always had to. I remember my brother. He used to race his Ute with a 308 in it, and then if you had a stock style 308 versus a 351 with they both had cams and intake manifold on them with a carburetor. Yep. The Ford would always kill the Holden, because for one, engine size, and they guess a lot better engine, I guess.
Here's another guy.
No matter what country we go to, everyone just races what we can afford.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, in Asia, they race lawnmowers and tillers. They have tillers. Okay. They super hot rod tillers, and they have this deal that they ride in the back. And these things will go 80, 90 miles an hour.
Oh, no way.
On the field.
Well, you got to race what you can afford, eh? It's always it's in male's nature, but to try and get things to go as fast as you can.
Now, this was interesting here. This guy from Canada, MMRE, says, in Canada, if you are 50... Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sorry.
50 kilometers per hour over the limit, you will lose your car for a month and a $10,000 fine.
Holy shit.
Now, I don't know.
They don't have any sense of humor either.
None. Did you see that?
There's... in America, we have states, and each state has its own laws. And
they're all different.
In Ohio, they have absolutely no sense of humor. In Texas, they're like, "Oh, you were doing 90? Okay, I'll write you up for 45."
You get away with a lot.
Yeah.
This guy says, go over 50 kilometers per hour over the limit, you lose your car for a month, $10,000 fine.
Yeah, similar here. If you do 40K over here, you instantly lose your license, and you get. I don't think it's 10 grand. I think it might be 5.
But still, Jesus, Mary.
40K and home. Yeah, they're very strict on speeding here, but not so strict on like if someone breaks into your house, they don't really give a shit.
If you shoot them.
And you guys.
Well, you don't got guns.
But if you're doing 10K and over, 10K over down the highway, they treat you like you're about to murder someone. But it's okay for young people and or whoever to come steal your car, and they'll be like, oh. Yeah, this happens all the time in this area. They'll just leave the car somewhere, and then you have to go get it later.
You know what I find amazing in Australia, that if you have a gun that's not registered, what is it, 15 years in prison?
Sorry?
If you're caught with a firearm that's unregistered.
Yeah. I'm not sure. But because obviously
it's like 15 years in prison.
Yeah, not sure.
If someone breaks into your house, is raping your wife, and you got to shoot them, you're going to go to prison for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I'll be on to prison.
It's nuts.
Wow.
Here, the cops come in and say, "Oh, good job," and up and leave.
Yeah.
It's as I said, our government needs a major adjustment. Hopefully, we've got One Nation that Pauline Hanson's trying to hopefully get in next term, and she'll definitely make some major changes to our country, and I 100% they will be for the better. Whether she actually gets in or not will be, or if they end up rigging the election, who would know? You know?
Exactly.
So I take it she's more conservative.
Oh, she's probably a bit more like Trump. You know what I mean? She's all for the Australian people and the Australian way, and you know, she wants to bring back how the country used to be when I was young. You know, like our country's gone from being you know, very profitable and having our own refineries and our own oil reserves and all that shut down. We export everything, we import everything. We don't, you know, they're just destroying, you know, manufacturing. They're wrecking the country. You know what I mean? They're that much in debt. They're like 2-point-something trillion into debt, or billion into debt. And yeah, they just keep trying to tax us, because the government keeps getting more and more in debt, and they just keep finding different ways to try and tax us to get out of debt instead of just fixing the issue they have. And that's
sounds familiar.
Yeah.
It's the same shit. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, because the taxes we pay is just crazy.
Here's a question. He says, wasn't there some guy in Australia running a 500-inch LS X-block engines making 1,000 horsepower in jet sprint boats?
Yeah, that's Fonzie Mullins. They build sprint boat engines over here. Yeah,
they're insane, man. Those sprint boats.
Jeez. Yeah. You know, well, I haven't had too much to do with them.
That looks like a wild ride.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it would be
one guy's doing this.
Yeah. I'm not sure if they're watching them, but all you see is
I know
this.
you see.
Oh yeah. You're on the edge of disaster all the time.
Have you seen some of the crashes where they turn the wrong way?
No.
Yeah.
Gone.
Really? I mean, you'll see them come off a bank and and then start flipping before they even
end up upside down in the river.
Yeah. Not,
and you're like,
not my dream situation.
We're gonna drown. Yeah, no, it's pretty cool.
Steve says,
I got offered to drive a drag boat one time, and I definitely turned it down.
I would not. Drag boats. Remember when they didn't have the capsules, and they used to get the parachutes, and then they'd roll over the front of the boat?
This was a pro gas jet, open, flat bottom.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah, no. No, boats are scary. Cars don't scare me. But
let's put it this way: I've jumped out of airplanes 1,165 times. I'm not driving a drag boat.
No, is there a hard RPM limiter on Australian pro stock like NHR rules? Also, apart from good weather and correction factor, is there any more power to be had from 400 cubic inch?
No, we don't have a rev limiter rule at all, so you can turn it as high as you want. We obviously similar rules to the 500 when they were running carburetors, but we are still 2 valve per cylinder, has to be carbureted. Obviously, we're allowed 401 cubic inches is the absolute max.
Yep.
But yeah, good weather. I think like the new engine that I built, the last race that we ran in Willowbank, I went 687 and it was 1040 correction. That corrected to a 79. So if you could somehow get the planets to align and you could run in one flat weather and you made a perfect run, you could probably go 679. It's statistically speaking, it's possible to do. But yeah, is there any more power to be had? Well, there's always more power there. You just got to
absolutely.
You just got to find it. You know what I mean? But we're at the end of like, you know, what we're sort of like our sort of pro stock journey is not too far off finishing up. To tell you the truth, you know, we're sort of winding down. That's why we don't run the whole series anymore. Just run a few races when we can. My dad still really loves it. I still enjoy driving, but, you know, we just enjoy the family time and going to the racetrack with our families. When we go now, we all take our caravans and we all go together, and it's just a big family gathering for us and family racing. And yeah, it's sort of, we try and not take it serious like we used to. It's just we go there to have fun and race, but still obviously try and be competitive at the same time.
Mariano says, I visited the USA a couple of times and you are blessed. The things that you can you can there is not common around the world.
No,
You
it's
must
not.
protect your country because you are really free compared to others. And that's the truth, guys. God bless America.
We're trying to protect it.
We're fortunate. Joel
Yeah.
says, go with the lady that Trump is endorsing.
Yeah.
There you go.
100%. Yeah.
Ty says, hi, Aaron. Of course. I'd love to hear about the Australian Mopar stuff you're doing. So,
Yeah.
him and I are going to talk after this. So we're kind of maybe have a plan for you, Ty. So stay tuned for that.
Definitely.
So you're doing some Mopar stuff?
Oh, we're just really updating our customers. He, as I said, he had an engine that he bought, and he wanted to update the engine to try and make it, where his other one was. So we pretty much just got the port was one of the original ports that I think like the P5 Hemi, it was stood right up really tall. The intake port, the roof angle's super tall.
Yeah.
And as I said, the other day, I don't run my stuff like that, and I haven't been able to make high port stuff like that work on my stuff personally. It probably works fine with different style of manifolds and all that, but we just pretty much I guess bogged the whole entire roof of the port. And
yeah, you have 70% of the runner in the head.
Yeah.
It's along with the fact that it's far too tall. It's stupid.
And just wrecks the manifold when it's that high. Yeah. The plenum becomes too wide. And
any way you try to bend it down, it just doesn't work.
No, it just doesn't work. It's got to be straight from the cylinder head. So we pretty much just bogged the roof, and then we just redone the port similar to another engine that we done a fair few years ago. And then just pretty much digitize what we had and then recut the ports like that. But I think that head went from about 450 CFM to like 485, I think 490 at like an inch,
So it's got the flow potential.
It's got plenty of air there, and cross-sectional area wise, I won't go into too much detail, but it's not crazy big, so I think it'll still pull fuel and it'll work with the manifold, the overall runner length that I'm trying to reach, it should still work with fine.
Everybody should pay attention to what you just said.
The overall runner length.
Pull fuel.
Yeah. So obviously I'm not a massive flow bench guy. Never really, I guess, whether I'm not smart enough to work it out properly or whatever, but, I've always just looked at, the fuel flow numbers on my dyno, and, if I make a head and then I run it, and if it starts losing fuel flow at 9,600, it's just too big. There's just not enough airspeed there. Then I'll go and pull the head off. I'll put some epoxy on the straight wall side. And man, I've done that, especially with the forward head that we done. I forget exactly how much epoxy, but we put epoxy just on the straight wall side, filled it in a little bit. We put the head straight back. The engine was still in dyno. I put the heads back on. I pulled, I think, 20 thousandths of jet the whole way out of the engine, and it made 20 more horsepower.
I can't count how many times I've done just what you said and freaked the hell out of people.
They're so finicky. Like, honestly,
they're on the razor's edge.
Yeah.
It's either right or it's not.
To make that, it seems to be like, for me, it's easy to make 1100. You know what I mean? Like it really is, like on my dyno. But that last 40, 50 is like really, really hard to get.
That's thousands of man hours.
Yeah, you just got to keep just fine tuning that one combination to get it to work. There's no, and then you go and literally build another engine, use the same heads, the same manifold, and then you run it like, oh shit, it's still down.
What I do, it's exactly the same.
I know.
No, it's not.
Like, where do I even look?
Exactly.
It is a pain in the ass, but
when you finesse something like that and just keep finessing and find your way home, then try to duplicate it never.
Yeah, it's very hard to make two things the same. And even when the V8 supercar stuff, like when I was at Jamie's, like they done 7 engines, and like they're all identical, 7 engines, and they were all within like 20 horsepower.
20, yeah.
And that was a 600 horsepower engine.
Yeah.
not a 1200 horsepower engine.
I can't count how many times we sold all the components to build a Pro Stock engine, and they were 80, 100 horsepower off. It could not figure out why.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
It's all that fine finessing that you do to refine that combination down to where it will make power. And people just
it's
don't
definitely the combination that makes the engine come to life. You're working on a new Ford head at the moment, aren't you, with Reno?
I'm not actually. Oh.
Huh?
I'm not supposed to talk about that.
I heard.
Anyway.
I heard that.
No one's listening now anyways.
Yes, I'm doing a set of Australian Pro Stock jets. Yeah.
Yes.
But I to put it perfectly, I didn't design the Assassin cylinder. That's Ed McLemore, And I tell this story because it's just one of those times in my life that I was just so stunned. I stood there like a statue. I'm at PRI and I walk up to this booth and here's this Ford head and I'm looking at it and I'm looking at it and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my God, I wouldn't change anything. I mean, this thing is, every minute I'm just more blown away.
I can't wait to see one.
And then the guy walks up to me, Ed, and he goes, what do you think? I said, I wouldn't change a thing. And he looks at me and he says, he'd never designed a cylinder head before. And he went out and networked with everyone and he had his vision. And he's like, okay, you tell me what I should do here. And he put his vision together, and that damn thing is the most efficient cylinder head I've ever seen in my life, period.
Yeah, that's cool, eh? Well,
He's racing right now.
It'll be very interesting to see what, like, the whole – and Reno's a very smart guy, so that'll be a cool – that's exciting for the class just in general, I think.
I've very, very few. I can probably count on one hand how many times I had the flow potential where I could actually say, shit, I don't need that much. I can capitalize on the design in other ways and get the airspeed up and do other things. I mean, how many times does that happen? You're always struggling. No. Yeah, to get the airflow, to get the engine speed, to make the power. Now I've got more than I need. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, now you can start small and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what we did. I made the manifold capable of 2.600 and capable of going 2.800 if he wants.
Yeah.
He can play with that.
Yeah.
So the billet runners on those things are 100 thousandths at the base and they go to 250 at the opening. Yeah. So that allows him to play when the manifold's completed. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
This guy was saying about those heads you were talking, Darin, the 14-degree iron head.
Mm-hmm.
He said that guys used to run that Chevy head in old NMCA Easy Street class.
Well, that cylinder head dominated a class called A&D, which was a nostalgia dragster. It's 400 cubic inches on alcohol, mechanically injected with an IR manifold, individual runner like an Interlead or Kinsler. And you're talking about pumping 600 pounds an hour of alcohol through a small block at 10,800 RPM. Those were the only heads that would make 1,000 horse.
Really?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Damn.
And we're talking injectors 10 inches long. We're talking an injector that goes through the port and snakes down to bore center because if you inject alcohol anywhere else, it takes up so much oxygen, the engine won't RPM. It's the craziest combination.
Kills
it.
Wow.
The crazy combination.
Yeah.
This guy's asking, is there any chance Ford brings back the Falcon in Australia?
No, definitely. Well, Ford's obviously shut over here, so.
Oh, they're shut down?
Yeah, Ford's completely shut. Yeah. For years. I don't know what year it shut, but it was quite a long time ago.
Well, Ford's been broke for a decade, so.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I guess the worst thing in Australia, we don't have any manufacturing here at all anymore.
Well, you could say the same to the States too.
How about this one? You're spot on, Aaron. Go Pauline.
Robbie Abbott. Of course he says it. Yeah.
if your boat needs a roll bar, you know it's not safe.
Yeah. But something to hit on the way out when you roll it.
Yeah, there it is. Should we be looking more at the exhaust side for power, as most have focused primarily on the intake side?
Well, that goes hand in hand, dude. That's a balance.
Yeah, definitely a
We're
balance.
revisit that one on 4-4. Steve says, thanks, Tim, Darin, and Aaron. Awesome chat. Looking forward to the next DMI seminar.
Thanks, buddy.
418.
Question: what is your current RPM like on an Australian Pro Stock engine? What do they fall to, and what do they shift at? What do you go through the traps at?
We sort of try and run them to 11, and then shift them at like around
94?
that. Sorry.
Okay, you drop
We're
them down
at
to what,
92?
92?
Yeah, about 92.
Most people have no concept of that. That the engine won't even run below 8,000.
No, they don't like running down there anyway.
Well, most people can't conceptualize the fact that the engine won't run under 8,000 RPM.
Yeah.
And this guy, MMRE from Canada, donated $20. Thank you, my friend. It says, hey, Tim, this is Mike Morrison from Canada. Do you have any C3 door stops for sale? I don't need the D3 you had holding your door open right now. Yeah, of course I do. I have a couple in stock.
On current Australian Pro Stock engines, how many runs do you get out of a set of springs?
I'll do 6 on mine.
6.
Yeah. So do 6 and 12.
It's very easy to develop camshafts that will give you less than that.
Yeah, it is. But like, I found being more aggressive sometimes it doesn't really make any more power, and you just beat your shit up.
It just beats your shit up.
Yeah,
exactly. That's
right. And then, like we've done a fair bit of Sprintron stuff back in the day with Walt Donovan and all that when he was still at Jessel. And then even Ben's helped me with some stuff recently, some from EFI University. So we looked at some stuff there. And as I said, but like, it's so weird. You put something in that you think's going to be better, and most of the time it's not.
Most of the time,
and then sometimes it is. So it was weird. Like I had two of the same camshafts ground in 2 different engines. In one of the cams with the later model lobes, it really worked well. But then, as I said the other day, I ran my old style, grind compared to the new style stuff, and it wasn't as good. So probably something I need to just go back to the drawing board and.
And a lot of times you can put cams like that on a Spintron. You can put them on your cam doctor. You can analyze them to death, and you really can't tell the difference.
No,
a lot of times.
Well, you're only talking, as I said, like your opening closing numbers are very. Whenever I try and design a cam, even with new lobes, we try and keep the opening closing events the same. See if the lobe shape's different, whether it's bigger at, if it's bigger at fucking 20, 200, smaller, whatever. We always try and keep the opening and closing numbers the same, because I found that's always the best place to start.
That's your baseline.
Yeah, that's right. Because if you go way outside that, like, so if I'm changing a lobe and it's
now
bigger,
you're changing too many variables to keep track of.
If it's bigger at 20, whatever, you just have a little bit less intake duration, or so. If you keep them numbers very close with camshaft designs, once you're obviously you need that data first. You can't just pick that out of the sky. You gotta find what opening close numbers work, and then when you're making cam changes, obviously try and keep them close. And I find that if you do that, the cams normally always work quite well. Yeah,
we used to, back in the 90s and early 2000s, I often say that we used to brutalize our way to power. It's like just lift it as fast and as high as you can and try to control it. It's brutal method. And now it's like slow is smooth, but smooth is fast.
Yeah, it's definitely changed. Like old cams are, like the old style cams, you're probably 4 degrees less at 20 than they are now. The newer stuff's like the low shock stuff's a lot bigger at 20, so it's a lot faster off the seat initially, but then it slows down, so the ramp's not as fast, and it just controls it a little bit smoother over the top of the load.
You hit on
controls
it.
it smoother over top load.
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't bounce, you're obviously helping with cylinder pressure. So then generally it's going to run better because it's not trying to bounce off the seat when it lands. So then you're gaining cylinder pressure. So then generally you're gaining volume. So you're going to gain power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How many runs do you get out of 7 rings now? And what ring widths do you use? You use like the
we still just
28,
honest,
26?
Yeah, I can still use 0.6.
Okay.
Yeah, 0.6.
You're in millimeters.
Yeah. 23.
Yeah, 23s.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you said that you can't run them 50 down. You got to run them in that one engine that you had. You had to run them up more than 100.
Sorry, what was that?
You can't run them 50 down from the top. You said on that one engine
Yeah,
that was really detonate, you had to run it 100 plus down.
Yeah, you can't. Well, I haven't been able to run the ring really high like we used to run it on the leaded fuel. Yeah.
Okay.
I found.
Okay. On the leaded fuel. Okay.
Yeah, on the unleaded fuel, we had to drop the top ring further down because obviously the crown was getting too hot, and you just lose. It either lift the land on the intake eyebrow, or it'd start leaking back. Like you'd lose vacuum. Then you'd leak it, and it'd be leaking 30% from 3 after 3 passes, and you're like, it's just the set is getting too hot. So
do you do a microscopic check of the surface area on your rings on teardown?
As I generally just check free gaps and stuff like that. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, like I'll check free gap when I pull it back apart and all the rest. So better rings last like. We'll do, like my brother's short engine has been together for 3 years, I think. Like we just check bearings, because it's makes 24.5 inches of vacuum. It leaks 2%. Like I said to Dad, there's no point in rebuilding it. Like it's still sealing. It's got steel rods in it. So it's,
after it heats up, it seals up even better.
Yeah,
I see a lot of problems with people that in between the seat rings, that gets real hot, that distorts, so it wears more there. So when the engine's cold, that's your 2%. As soon as it heats up, boom, you're sealed.
Yeah, and especially because the seat's so narrow,
and doing the valve job just
and if you're quite steep on exhaust angle and that, but we can do 100 passes on the top end. I wouldn't do that on valves. I generally only do about 40, 50 runs on intake valve on valves period, and then pull the heads apart, check them. But I generally don't even cut seats because they're still perfect.
Exactly. And you see that point in between the seats.
Yeah,
it isn't touching, but when it heats up, it seals.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And some people demand it's like, well, it's leaking. Well, that's when it's cold.
Yeah. Right. Not when it heats up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you changed how you hone things? I saw you had a Rottler and stuff. Have you changed how you hone in the past? How'd you start with a hone machine?
Yeah, well, when we started honing, obviously we was sort of a lot steeper crosshatch angles than we are now. We were a lot shallower in the valley. Like I think back in the day, we're probably like low 20s in the valley, and
really?
like 10, 15 in the peak type thing. Whether now like make the valley really deep and then shallow on the peak, so it still looks fine, but lay the crosshatch angle down, 30 degrees.
Most people don't understand what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, it's just piston speed relevant, like.
Well, yeah, but the crosshatch change going up the board, they don't understand that. So the crosshatch in the bore changes as you go to the top of the bore.
Correct.
Right.
So
why?
If you have, just for the general audience out here, if you have a bore with a standard 35-degree crosshatch all the way through, where your rings are loaded, they're going to spin and it's going to wear more. So if you take the crosshatch as it approaches the top of the bore and you take it like this, it'll hold more oil in that area, give you more surface. You can handle more load, and it's not going to spin the ring. So go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't. That's just like something you you have like now, as I was telling you the other day, that you can talk to Keith from Total Seal and he'll tell you the numbers to aim for, what to do, how to hone it. Whether back in the day, I had
you had to pay money, didn't you?
I had to pay someone for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to pay another pro stock guy, engine guy, to tell us how to hone blocks better, and he did, and it definitely worked. We picked up a fair amount of power there, and that's I said. But that was all the knowledge that you can find now online versus what you could 15, 20 years ago. It's just not night and day. They didn't have people like Darin and like Total Seal weren't doing the videos they're doing, and I guess everything now. It's
like I went to a Total Seal conference, and I spoke at that conference, and I looked at what they're doing, and I told them, I said, back in the 90s and early 2000s, we were having to tell you what we needed.
Yeah.
And now they're teaching us what we need.
Yeah.
It went full circle.
Well, because with all the friction tests they do, and like it's phenomenal. Like it's definitely a company that has developed a really good product, and it's helped a lot with performance and obviously reliability with engines too. Like what sort of ring pressure? Like you can literally get my engines and turn them over with your hand by the crank snout. That's how much ring drag you have.
Yeah.
You don't drive the pistons in the board. You make sure they don't fall and hit the crank. I mean, there's no static ring tension in these things. It's all gas operated.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Here's a good question for you. Mario says, Aaron, do you grind your own cams? What machine do you use to grind it? Manual machine or CNC?
No, we don't grind our own cams. It's still done.
I don't think anyone does.
No, I think you'd be silly too. And a CNC cam grinding machine is a really expensive machine to buy, and then the amount
of cams it takes extraordinary expertise
to
do it.
Yeah. There is a company, Crow Cams, in Australia. They do have a CNC grinder. They do a lot of the cams for a lot of really good cars over here. So I've got no doubt they could probably, if you sent them a profile that you wanted, they could probably, duplicate it or make you something. But no, we don't do that in house.
Who do you deal with? Whose cams do you run or use?
We sort of used a bit of everyone, to tell you the truth, from anything from John Park, like Bullets, to LSMs, to Comp, to, as I said, even the Jessel stuff. Walter, when he was there, he was a really nice guy. I love talking to him. So yeah, sort of a bit of everyone, mate. I've tried absolutely everything. To try and make sure I wasn't leaving anything on the table with anyone. But yeah, they all seem to be relatively, in my opinion, like there's a lot of them that are very similar. Like,
okay,
yeah, everything has gone into a specialty. It's like heads and induction and camshaft, and everybody is specialized to the point where. Yeah, nobody grinds their own cams anymore.
No, all them great manufacturers, they all know what they're doing. It's the same as piston companies and that now. They all have their own cam profiles and all that work well. And it doesn't really matter, I guess, whether you use CP or Diamond or whatever. But it's just the relationship that you have, and that there's a lot of companies that make good products, and that's the fortunate thing these days, is that it's available to really anyone as well.
That's a good point. It is. It's like Clint Neff wanted a camshaft for that JC51 that AED. The camshaft that's in there is the first camshaft he's ever tried. He called up Billy Godbolt. He said, "This is the power curve. This is where I want it." Gave him all the specs. He gave him a cam, and it went out there and ran faster than anything's ever seen. That's what we're dealing with now. We have the technology to do that.
Yeah. And Billy's the same. Like, he's definitely with comp and that. Like, he will do your overlays and all that sort of stuff to help you out. And a very smart guy. And that's what I said. They're definitely, the technology has just come a long way. You know what I mean? And as I said, it's that I think if you're a random guy, you could ring up and say to someone like Dean Harvey, or like he's a great guy also to deal with. You could ring him up and say, "I'm building a pro stock engine. Just give me a camshaft that will will work," and he will give you something that honestly would be really, really close.
Yep. And close is relative.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's. I mean, close on a pro stock is within 20 horsepower, and that's freaking really close.
Yeah.
Joel says, do you see metal transfer on the rings with unleaded fuel?
Good question.
You can sometimes, obviously, if you're pushing the edge. Yeah. If you're a little lean with the fuel, you'll pull the plug sometimes, and you will see a little bit of metal transfer there. As I said, the temperature, I guess, the exhaust gas temps aren't really hotter because it's burning. I guess it's burning in the cylinder, not out the pipe, compared to leaded. But your plug, you can tell when you're really leaning on it because your electrode, it starts to round off around the tip of the electrode, and then like you're on danger zone. It's you got to be your moments from destroying your shit.
You can see the electrode rounding off then.
Yeah, like that nice square edge it has.
Yeah.
If it starts to round over, like it will literally, you're really, really on edge when that happens. It doesn't even really affect the strap too much. It's mainly the electrode tip. The strap comes up, and then this will burn first, and then the bottom of the strap will start to pit. And that's you were done at that point.
I didn't even think about that. That's right. Without lead, it has far less lubricity.
Yeah.
So your rings wear is going to go up. Did it go up? Does it go up? And how much?
That's what I said. Like initially, it was a bit, but now it seems to. Now, as I said, with cooling the fuel, with the piston changes that we made with Diamond, and the coatings and that we use, I don't really have piston issues or ring issues at all.
But there was that transition period.
But long as you don't miss the tune-up, if you miss the tune-up, it's done.
So it has less of a tuning window.
Yeah, it's a lot narrower tuning window. Yeah. You sort of. It's the same thing. Like it's unleaded too. You don't want to be too rich either. They don't like being really rich, and then same thing.
Really?
They don't like being really lean, obviously. But if you're really leaner than, I guess, if you run it at, if you've done a pass at 15-1 on one cylinder, it's going to hurt it.
So the air-fuel ratio is more finite.
Yeah. It's just a narrower band. Yeah.
Huh.
So if I'm ever dying on a new engine with new carburetors, I'll just do like quick short runs I'll try and obviously guess where the carburetors need to be and try and work out what they need cross-sectional area wise versus how much fuel flow. But it's really just, because real short, quick pulls above peak torque and get the fuel close. And then obviously then you can start putting more time in it and leaning on it. But you don't have that window that you used to have, like, with leaded fuel, like back where you guys run like Q16, you'll know, Darin, like you have a single carbureted engine that doesn't have a very efficient manifold. If you put all 802 sensors in the pipes, and if it's a 23-degree engine with a shit manifold on it, you'll have one cylinder at 17-1. You know what I mean? Like, and then one's 11-1, and then like if you done that on unleaded fuels with decent compression, it's goodbye engine.
Yeah. So Steve's asking, and Darin was talking about, how do you change the crosshatch angle at the top of the bore? Slow the vertical speed down as it reaches the top?
CNC hones.
Yeah, CNC hone.
There it is. Rottler.
You can't do it manually.
You can basically, if you have a manual machine, you can sort of trick it and dwell at the top. You can dwell at the top. So if you do like on your plateau, you could probably, like the stop dwell, you can get it to rotate maybe once or twice to flatten that top angle just at that last bit, and that will help on an older machine. That's sort of what we used to try and do.
Okay.
Let's put it this way. If you load the ring at a 35 or greater angle, it will literally spin the ring sometimes. It'll micro weld itself right into the lane.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen micro welding on a ring in 25 years.
No,
That's-
honestly, I haven't. I haven't seen that in that many years. I don't remember.
I mean, it used to spin the ring so hard it was
Really?
just ridiculous. And you're loading the ring down, and it just
twisting it,
galled
yeah.
itself into the bottom of the
Yeah.
ring.
Well, that's like a lot of the endurance stuff to get anodized top ring grooves and stuff like that to help
Prevent
with,
that. Yeah.
you know, not micro welding rings and stuff like that. With
As the ring wears on endurance stuff, and it starts wearing that land down,
Yeah.
you get
Yeah.
micro welding.
yeah,
Well, we said we're probably going to go about 2 hours, and it's an hour
yeah,
and
no.
5
Okay.
minutes. So we're going to probably cut it down because right now it's almost 9 o'clock here. So it's like what, almost
Yeah, it's nearly 11 o'clock here.
Yeah. So
Is there anything else you want to bring up, Aaron?
Mate, not really. I guess, appreciate the chat and you guys reaching out, of course.
thank you for taking the time for both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And no, if you ever get over here and come and visit, obviously make sure you hit me up and we'll hang out. And
Hell yeah.
Well, how about we do another seminar at your shop?
yeah,
We
that'd
could
be
do
cool.
that.
Yeah.
I think
You-
that would be cool.
You're definitely due to come over here, Darin. We could have
Yeah.
an engine on the dyno and everything.
It's been, what, 15, 20 years?
Yeah. Oh, this is a long time. Was it that long ago?
Wasn't it 21? You told me something like that.
Was it
Yeah.
that long ago?
I had 60, we had, what, 65 people
Yeah.
attend that seminar.
Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. You gave me a lot of stuff to look into, you know.
That's all it was
Def-
for.
Yeah, it definitely was with all your knowledge. There was a lot, and a lot of the stuff that you told us and we learnt from that class, it went into definitely the more, I guess, race style engines. You know, obviously pro stock related, yes, but
Yeah.
just general. My guys from the shop, they still have your book that they keep at the epoch. You know what I mean? And if he's doing new seat development and all that, you know, he'll you know, Grant will look at it and go, oh, you know, what do you think of this? I'm like, yeah, well, that's what works. So,
You know, and we
Nice.
definitely need to do an update because with the steeper seats, like on the Aussie Pro Stock heads that I do, they're 58-degree seats, and the undercuts are completely different. The throat's completely different. The offset's completely different.
than
Everything's
they
totally
used
different.
to be, yeah,
Yeah, than they used to be.
yeah,
I mean, they're designed to tune up to that little place up there.
yeah. That
10,
the
5, 10, 8, you know.
the higher the better these days. It's just trying to get it. It's trying to get it efficient up there is the hard thing, you know. Like I had a guy the other day who was like, "Oh, you know, you just if you've got more air in the cylinder head, you just run the engine higher." You know, I'm like, well, that's good in theory, but have you ever
If
tried?
the efficiency of the port
Yeah.
matches that flow,
Yeah,
yeah, you
but
can do that.
that's what I'm saying. Like, and then you come into the problem with, you know, what's max piston speed, friction versus, you know, so like, again, probably to do it with a shorter stroke engine, you can get the engine to run up there a lot easier, you know, but bigger stroke engines, a lot more piston speeds, friction becomes a problem too.
Yep.
Getting the engine to be
Not-
efficient up there is not just cylinder heads, you know?
Yeah,
inside
and
manifold.
not just you struck on a perfect topic here because it's like all the piston speeds of NA engines in their max efficiency range don't exceed. I mean, 6,500 is too much piston speed,
Yeah.
mean piston speed. But as the mean piston speed increases, the CFM demand increases with it.
Yeah.
Whether anything else changes, if your piston speeds change, you have to move more air to make power up there.
That's
So what
right.
do? We go bigger bore, shorter stroke, bring the piston speeds down to where we can feed the motor. Well, you're stuck. You're
Yeah,
stuck with the bore
Well,
stroke
with,
ratio. now.
well, with a 500-inch engine and also with a 400-inch engine, you can only go so big in the bore because your bore space limit. So
Right.
And you're
you're stuck
pushing
with-
it to the edge, you know?
yeah, you're
It's-
stuck with. I think that's why everyone sort of, you know, with NHRA, obviously they're at 10.5 now, but you know they sort of hit. I reckon they definitely hit a limit at about. I've heard of stuff of them going 12,000. I've never seen it. You know.
11.8, Johnson's
Yeah.
with the Hemi, the highly rotated
Yeah.
stuff. Now, I'm not saying it was efficiently running
Yeah.
up there.
It'd
but
run
yeah,
there.
yeah, it would run there.
Yeah,
And,
it'd run.
You know,
there.
it's
That's just-
It's
I know the
robbing
Chevy-
Peter
Yep.
to pay Paul.
Yeah, I know the
You've
Chevy
heard that?
stuff that Elite were doing. You know, they were going 11,000.
Yeah.
You know, they were, and that was when Nick was working there. You know, and they were shifting the thing 10-9, 10-8, 10-9, running to 11-1 across the finish line, and that's sort of, I guess, you know, where we sort of are. But yeah, just trying to get it higher than that. I just, you know, as I said,
That's the break point. It's when you start robbing Peter to pay Paul. You have to take from the torque to add to the average power up top, and then you start increasing the compression ratio because your VE's dropping so hard.
Yeah, it's just hard to get it efficient up there.
It just makes the whole window just shrink down to nothing.
Yeah,
especially,
and that's what I mean. You can't lose that much torque where it's not going to shift the car or get it off the start line good enough. You know, even if you gear it harder, etc., you still have to move a certain amount of mass, you know, and it seems to want a certain amount of torque to do that and to make it efficient, you know.
And you're trying to. It's like, okay, power pulses. Do you remember when everybody was talking about power pulses on the racetrack? If I can get 2 more power pulses. So what you're doing is you're decreasing efficiency, increasing compression ratio, trying to make up for that drop in efficiency to get 4 or 5 more power pulses and burn that little bit more fuel.
Yeah.
And it just shrinks your window down to where you can't.
Yeah, it does, yeah. But that was the whole difference between back in, you know, when we started racing to where we are now, just pushing the RPM window up and then as much as we could and trying not to lose the torque, you know, with it. And we've sort of, you know, at the start, when we started trying to do it, we always would lose. You know, you create a hollow in the power curve. It wouldn't even be
exactly.
It wouldn't be an arch. It would
lazy.
be a hollow.
Yeah,
like, oh, it'd still run up there. It's still making 10 more at 11. I mean, at 10-8, and you're like,
but won't accelerate.
You put the thing in the car, and it was just shit.
Yeah, it just won't accelerate.
Yeah, that's right. So then you're like, oh, look, we need to fix this, but we need to move the whole curve up.
Well, there it is, boys. We're going to end it right now. We actually went over 2 hours. So I appreciate everybody being here. DragBoss Garage, Darin Morgan induction. Thank you, Aaron Tremayne.
Thanks, guys.
Great talk, Aaron. Thanks, man.
You too, mate.
So
guys, if you want to check out our website, go on and have a look. And if you're interested in any products, give us a shout.
Right on,
Same,
man.
Aaron. If you ever guys want any billet cylinder heads, I can sell you blanks.
There you go.
You can still put your magic on it, and I'll sell you the blanks.
There it is. I think we got
there you go.
We got
Thanks,
a plan.
Guys.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Fight,
Have a
guys.
good day.